Hi guys, in this session we are going to learn about Snowflake Data Dictionary. We know that Snowflake stores the metadata about the objects we have created in the Snowflake and usage, billing data. All this metadata is getting stored in Metastore in Cloud Service Layer. Snowflake has provided two ways to access the metadata about our object usage and billing related information. So what are those two ways? The first one is information schema. Information schema will be created by default when we create a database. Every database have a information schema. The objects in the information schema are read-only, and these information schema views contain the metadata of all the objects which are created under its corresponding database. Roles, warehouses, databases, all these comes under account level object, right? Apart from these account level objects, these views contain metadata of file format, stages and storage integration, etc. And when we query the object of this information schema, the output depends on the role what we have. Okay, so don't expect that the result I am getting you will get the same. Okay, that depends upon the role you are using when you are querying. Okay. Now let's see the second way. The second way is querying the Snowflake database. So you see here there is an arrow mark. What does it mean? So this is a share. Snowflake has shared our metadata which belongs to our account with us. This Snowflake database also have information schema. So this information schema which has the information about the metadata of the objects which belongs to this particular database. Okay. So information schema here and information schema you see in our regular databases, logically there is no difference. Other than information schema, this Snowflake database has 4 different schemas. One is account usage, data sharing usage, organization usage and reader account usage. If you want the information about an object which can belongs to any database in the Snowflake, you can get from this particular database. The information this Snowflake database object has is a superset of information what we have in our local information schema objects. Before getting into the details of the objects which are under Snowflake schema, let's go and cover local information schema. Let's look into the first table, that is applicable roles. This particular view contains the roles of the login user. So I am saying right click and preview data. I logged in with the user fkp.iai. This particular user has all these roles. All the roles which are assigned to your user, you can query this view. Just right click and say preview data. Then you will come to know what are all the roles you are holding. Now the columns. This view has details of the columns of the tables which are created under this particular database. So you have the table catalog, meaning database name, and the table schema and table name and the column name, and it has the ordinal position and its data type, whether the column is nullable or not and whether the column is identity column or not. In real time we generally query this view as, let's go to databases view. When you query this view, you will get all the databases in your Snowflake account. Again, the result will vary, depends on the role you are holding. When you query the enabled roles, you will see what are all the roles enabled for the logged in user. The difference between enabled roles and applicable roles is, for example, I am using account admin role. Only these roles are enabled. Suppose let me change it to sysadmin role. Now let's see applicable roles. There won't be any change in the result. But when I query this enabled roles, see these are the two roles currently enabled for this particular user when he is sysadmin role. Okay, let me go back. External tables is holding information about external tables created in your database. So currently I have not created any external tables in this database. Then file formats. If I create any file formats, those file formats will be displayed when I query this view. If I create any functions, those functions will appear when I query this functions view. It looks like I have created a simple function. Okay, so it is providing the details about that simple function I have created. And information schema catalog, there is nothing to do with this one, just show the current database name. And load history, this is important view. It gives me the details about the file load operations. This view has a record for each load operation that you do to load a file into Snowflake table. It has what is the file name and the table name in which you are loading, when the load is started, what is the status of that load. If any records are failed, it will display here the first error message, first error line number, first error character position, first error column name, total error count, and the error limit that you have set in the copy into command. If you are not aware of copy into command, please go through my working with stages YouTube video. Now, when you query this object privileges view, it provides the details of the privileges that you have on each object under this database. This view helps us to check whether you have the sufficient rights on a given object or not. If you see you don't have sufficient rights, you can request your DBA saying that I have only these rights, grant me so and so rights, I need it for my work. Okay. When you query packages view, this is a new view. It got recently added. This is created to help Snowpark. Snowpark is a new environment where the users can write machine learning program there. For data scientists, it is very easy to write ML algorithms on the objects which are residing in Snowflake. That's a new thing from Snowflake. At this point, I'm not going into more details about this object. Please leave it for now. And going forward, we'll have a separate session on Snowpark and pipes. When you query this view, it will give the details about the snow pipes that you have created. You know that, right? Snowpipe is a tool which is used for continuous data loading into Snowflake. When you query this procedures view, it will display the stored procedures that you have created in the database. When you query referential constraints view, it has the details about table constraints that you have created. Suppose you have created a primary key and a table, so that primary key name will be displayed here. And generally we give the names to our primary keys, and if you have any unique constraints. So it's it will give the details of your constraints that you have created. Okay. When you query this schemata view, it will show the schemas which present in the current database. Okay, so these are all the schemas we have in DemoDB. When you query sequences view, it has the details of the sequences created in the current database. Okay, it has the sequence name and the minimum value, max value, start value, next value, increment by. So you can find metadata of your sequences. When you query stages view, you will see metadata of the stages we have in the current database. It has stage name, which location it is pointing to, whether it's an internal stage or external stage. If you don't have the stage URL, it means it is internal stage. And you have stage type clearly written and who has created that stage, all these details we have. This is important view, that is tables. It will have metadata of the tables, views. In tables again we have differences, right? We have base table, transient table, temporary table, materialized views, including secure views. This is frequently using object in real time. Okay, how to query this table? Here you can see the details of the given table, whether it's a transient table or not. Very important thing that to notice is it contains number of records it is currently holding. What is the space it is occupying on the disk and the retention time period. And when you query table constraints view, it provides the metadata of the constraints that you have at the table level. See all the constraint names and the corresponding information. And now when you query table privileges view, you will see objects on which you have granted the privileges to other roles. Suppose this is me. I have created the table called cloned customer table. I granted truncate rights to this role. Okay. Overall, this view is showing what I have granted to other roles. Okay. When you query table storage metrics, it will display details about table volume. Okay, so this is my table name. This is the size of my table, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes. Okay, it's around 7.5 GB, and currently it don't have any time travel bytes or it don't have any failsafe bytes and retained for clone bytes. So what it means, this particular table is cloned table. I have cloned this table from so and so table. So in that case, it don't need to have any active bytes. because Snowflake is not going to store a table again when you clone an existing table until unless clone table go for any changes. For this, Snowflake is not going to charge because it is cloned table. You remember that, right? Cloning is metadata operation. It is not physically copying the micro partitions for the cloned table. I think you got it. Now, when you query usage privileges, don't get confused. It is not going to show all the objects on which you have the usage rights. In reality, this view has the sequences on which you have the usage rights. When you query views object, you will see details about the views exist in the current database. Okay, so that's all about information schema. Now let's go to Snowflake Metadata database and let's start understanding. When you create a table, you will find metadata of that particular table immediately in the local information schema. But whereas you can see the details about that table from Snowflake database, you need to wait for some time because there is a delay to have the refreshed data in Snowflake database. So the delay, it varies from 45 minutes to 3-4 hours. I cannot say like minimum 45 minutes, but there is some delay. Okay? So you cannot get immediately. Okay. And now let's go through the objects which are in account usage. Access history. When you query access history, it will display what are all the objects are accessed by a given user. Suppose if you look at direct object access. So you have queried this table. You have ran that query at this point of time, and this is your corresponding query ID. And automatic clustering history. When you query this view, you will find records about how many times Snowflake has reclustered your tables. For each reclustering operation, there will be a row here. So when the reclustering started, when it is ended, how many credits are charged, all those details will be here. And then columns, we have the columns view in local information schema as well. So initially I told the data you get here is a superset. You can get the columns list across this Snowflake account. Copy history. So that the name itself is telling this is related to table load operation. So which file is loaded, where was that file, when that load happened, how many records are parsed in the sense how many records are loaded successfully, what is the total count of records in a file, what is the file size, and if there any errors occurred during the loading, it will display first error related information. And then database. So you will see here all the databases under this particular account, including the databases which are deleted, which were there in the past and now they are not exist. But still you will see the entries here because you need this to find the space occupied when those databases were exist. Database storage usage history. It has total size of a given database. So let me query this table. Okay, this is the daily size of this database. By querying this table, you can see the data growth of your database. Now, data transfer history. This view provides the details about data transferred between your Snowflake accounts. So you have two Snowflake accounts, one in one region, the other account in a different region. You have data replication enabled. You need to schedule data refresh job so that data from the source account will be transferred to your secondary account which exists in different regions. If you have this mechanism, you will see the records. Otherwise, you will not see any records. Then file formats. This view displays all the file formats that we have under the account. Grants to roles. When you query grants to roles object, it will show what are all the privileges are granted from role A to role B. The same information what you have seen grant to roles, that will be shown at the user level when you query grants to users. Grants to users. When you query this view, you will see what roles are assigned to which users. When that role is revoked, these details will be present here. Then load history. So I did not find any difference between load history and copy history. And I am leaving this to you guys. You do some research and find out what's the difference. But I see almost same columns what we have here, same in the copy history table as well. Login history. The name itself is telling that login and logout events of the users.